devotees to this wonderful morning discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 26, Fundamental Principles of Material Nature, verse number 27. Vaikārakād vaikurvāna manastatvam ajāyata yat sankalpa vikalpabhyam vartate kama sambhava. Vaikārikād vikurvanan manastatvam ajāyata yat sankalpa vikalpabhyam vartate kama sambhava. Vaikārikād vikurvana manastatvam ajayat yat sankalpa vikalpabhyam vartate kama sambhava. Synonyms: Vaikārikat, from the false ego of goodness. Vikurvanat, undergoing transformations. Manaha, the mind. Tattavam, principle. Ajayat, evolved. Yat, whose. Sankalpa, thoughts. Vikalpabhyam, and by reflections. Vartate, happens. Kama sambhava, the rise of desire. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ji ki Jai. Translation: from the false ego of goodness, another transformation takes place. From this evolves the mind, whose thoughts and reflections give rise to desire. Purport: the symptoms of the mind are determination and rejection, which are due to different kinds of desires. We desire that which is favorable to our sense gratification, and we reject that which is not favorable to sense gratification. The material mind is not fixed, but the very same mind can be fixed when engaged in the activities of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, as long as the mind is on the material platform, it is hovering. And all this rejection and acceptance is asat, temporary. It is stated that he whose mind is not fixed in Krishna consciousness must hover between acceptance and rejection. However, advanced man is in the academic qualification. As long as he is not fixed in Krishna consciousness, he will simply accept and reject and will never be able to fix his mind on a particular subject matter. Om Ajnanatimrandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshuran Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaham Dadati Sapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jutapad Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamcha Shri Rupam Sagar Jatam Sahgana Raghunatham Tam Tam Sajivam Sadhvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sangitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahgana Lalita Shri Vishakha Antam Cha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deen Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kant Radha Kant Namastate Tapta Kanchan Gaurungi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Pri Vanchakalpataru Vyaksh Kripa Sindhu Vevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasa Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram. We welcome all the devotees to this morning discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam. Here we're discussing from this Canto 3, this particular section, Lord Kapila speaking to his mother Devati. Lord Kapila coming in the family of Shri Kardamba Muniji and Mother Devhuti coming in the family of Swayambhu Manu. So in the beginning of this chapter, Mother Devhuti asked this question, inquiry from his son, Lord Kapila, that please explain to me about Prakriti and Purusha. And then Lord Kapila started explaining the Sankhya philosophy. This philosophy of understanding the material elements. Sometimes Sankhya philosophy is defined that way, to understand the material elements around us. Some other acharyas also define Sankhya philosophy as the philosophy to understand matter. And in some other contexts, it's also defined as understanding the matter, the spirit, and the relationship between matter and spirit. Logically, one by one, step by step. Sankhya is complete. It comes from the word samak, mean complete. Complete knowledge of the matter and the spirit and the relationship and the root cause of the matter and the spirit. That's a Sankhya. So here, Lord Kapila is ready to answer, started answering in last few verses. And we see this is not something, Lord Kapila as Lord Krishna also explains the same Sankhya philosophy to his very dear devotee and friend and relative Uddhava Maharaj in Canto 11. In the beginning of this Canto 3, we also hear the same philosophy, the Sankhya philosophy, that Maitreya Muni explains to Vidur Maharaj. The philosophy about the creation. So here, and whenever we hear about this Sankhya philosophy of creation of matter, we come to know all these terms. Sometimes they are overwhelming, but we get to hear them. We can fix our mind and try to understand. But how much we can understand about Krishna's creation? Not so much, but we can put our mind. So we hear these terms, Pradhana, Mahatattva, unmanifested state of the material nature is Pradhana, then it gets manifested by the glance of the Lord, and Lord adds his time factor to agitate the Pradhana, and that Pradhana turns into Mahatattva, and the living entities are ready to manifest in that Mahatattva through this time factor, through the Sabhava, the karmas of the living entities. They all hop up, and living entities are ready to manifest. And then from the Mahatattva, this first element of false ego, we hear in these last couple of verses, the first element is the Ahankara, the false ego. And then the false ego also manifests in three different forms. False ego in the form of mode of goodness, mode of passion, and mode of ignorance. So in this particular verse, the false ego in the mode of goodness, Lord Kapila explaining to Mother Devahuti, the false ego in the mode of goodness becomes the source of the mind. Source of the mind. So if somebody asks, where your mind comes from, we have some idea philosophically that it's this. The source of my mind is the Ahankara in the mode of goodness. And then the demigods also become product of the false ego in the mode of goodness. And the false ego in the mode of passion, we will hear in the next few verses, becomes a source of intelligence and our senses. And the false ego in the mode of ignorance becomes the source of sound and ether. So this is how everything in the material nature manifests. The senses, the sense objects, the demigods, the planetary systems, and then Brahmaji receives all these raw elements. We call them in the beginning of Canto 3 as bricks and mortars to build this universe. These are the bricks to build a house, the foundation. You need raw material. So Lord Brahmaji is given the raw material by Lord Sankarshan, Lord Vishnu, in the form of these Mahatattva, the time factor, the 24 elements and more elements, and the mind and the intelligence and the senses, sense objects. It can become complex, but what I was thinking, one point we want to highlight here, what's the point? What's the point of discussing this? What's the point that Lord Kapila is trying to make? Yes, he's trying to answer Mother Devahuti's question, the source of Prakriti, what this Prakriti looks like, what this material nature looks like. So by going through this Pradhana Mahatattva, the false ego, three modes, the mind, the senses, we know what material nature looks like. So that's one point. The other point is also in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matah sarvam pravartate. I am the source of everything. All the spiritual and material planets come from me. So that sounds like, from Bhagavad Gita perspective, that sounds like a philosophical absolute truth. But how you back it up? Here in Srimad Bhagavatam, when we go through this discussion about the creation, the material nature, the elements, we see we can see very clearly. So here Lord Kapila or Maitreya Muni or then Krishna explaining to Uddhav Maharaj, hundreds and hundreds of verses in Srimad Bhagavatam talks about this creation of material nature, creation of us, the living entities, how we get manifest. And then we realize that what it means when Krishna says, Aham Sarvasya Prabhu, I am the source of everything. So he is the source of this Mahatattva. He is the source of Pradhana. He is the source of everything. Krishna is the source of everything. So by going through these discussions, we start appreciating the greatness of the Lord, how great he is. This is like a plumbing. If you get to understand, or at least you get to see the plumbing underneath your sink, you start appreciating how water and sink and drainage works. Otherwise, it's very superficial. If you don't see all the pipes underneath and then how they're connected and how water is moving from one place to another place. So this is the plumbing of not just the material nature, but us, the living entities, what's our source when this universe get dissolved, where do we reside and how do we manifest again, and how we get entangled. So many times this philosophical question comes, how this living entity gets entangled in three modes. What are these three modes? Where they come from? So by going through the Sankhya philosophy, we get to understand the complexity of our origin, the origin of the material nature, the three modes, origin of this mind who is bewildering us life after life after life, who is capturing us by allowing us to go through the sankalpa vikalpa, to enjoy the senses, sense objects. So that's one point. But then question comes, what is the point to that point? What Lord Kapila wants us to understand? Because we do understand the greatness of Krishna, because he's the source of everything. But does that tell the sweetness of the Lord? Because we're all hankering for the sweetness part, relationship part, emotional part. Mind hovers on the philosophical part. It's a bit dry. This knowledge of material nature, three modes, is a bit dry. So in the coming chapter, we will see Lord Kapila not only now, after explaining the Sankhya, the source of the material nature, there are two full chapter dedicated by Lord Kapila to the devotional services, the sweetness part. Just like in Bhagavad Gita, we see in the beginning, chapter 2, 3, 4, so much jnana, so much, and in the end, so much jnana, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, knowledge about the material nature, the three modes, and then, but in the middle, especially in the middle, 9 and 10, there is so much nectar, the sweetness, Krishna's relationship with his devotees, Krishna's mood, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam or Kathyanta Shimam Nityam Mahatmastu Na Partha, Apiset Sudacharo, how he's kind, even if devotee. So Similarly, here also in coming chapters, I'm just sharing with you that let's hold on to this knowledge of this philosophy of Sankhya, philosophy of material creation, because very soon coming up, two beautiful chapters on devotion. Lord Kapila will explain exactly the way Krishna explains in 9 and 10 what devotee is supposed to look like, how he's supposed to perform his personal sadhana, how he's supposed to, what are the qualities of devotees, how he's supposed to meditate on the deity of the Lord. Everything will be explained by Lord Kapila to Mother Devhuti. And that will bring the sweetness. Because Mother Devhuti is going to ask this $1,000,000 question after many of these Sankhya verses, that my dear son, Lord Kapila, you have explained so much about this mind getting captured with the three modes. Is there any way that this mind can be delivered? Because mind's source is the material elements, false ego. So if mind comes from the false ego, then how this mind can be, how the soul which is captured inside this body, which is covered by the three modes in the mind, how that soul can be liberated from the three modes? That $1,000,000 question will be asked by Mother Devhuti. And Lord Kapila will then explain through those two chapters on devotional services, step by step by step. And that will bring a lot of sweetness. So when you see Krishna's greatness and sweetness, that gives foundation to devotees to keep going, because we need both. We need information, but we also need transformation. Without transformation, information becomes dry. It's philosophy. But the transformation comes when we hear the sweet relationship between devotees. And we hear in many next cantos, stories about Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruv Maharaj, Bharat Maharaj. Those are the sweet pastimes of the Lord and his devotees. But without knowing the greatness, that's why Srila Prabhupada was very persistent about this, that devotees go systematically through learning Srimad Bhagavatam from Canto 1 through Canto 12. Because in the beginning, this greatness of the Lord, his kindness, and this especially looking through this creation part and the material nature and the modes and the Mahatattvas, we also get to feel that Krishna is so kind to the living entity that he goes through so much to give us, the living entity, his devotees, his part and parcel. Mame vanche jivaloke jiva bhuta sanatana. He gives chance to his jiva to manifest again, to get another chance to be liberated, to be delivered. He goes through so much trouble of creating this creation, creating three modes again, creating the time factor. It's sometimes we feel that we have to work so hard to chant our rounds and worship the deities and get purified. It's hard work. But then we can see now by understanding this Sankhya philosophy that Krishna has to work so hard. It's not Krishna personal, but he is engaging his energies. He's engaging the time factor. He is presenting himself as Vasudeva in the heart of every living entity to give that electric current, to give that knowledge to the living entity. So that appreciation, that by learning the Sankhya philosophy, that we appreciate that Krishna is so kind to all of us, that he's giving us the second chance by creating this material world, we can call prison house. That's a bit pessimistic, but yes, this material world to give us a chance to come again and worship him again and to love him again and to create a relationship with him again, go back to Godhead. So I will rest here my comments. Thank you very much for connecting. If anybody has a comment, please share. We have 2-3 minutes. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. There's something in the chat. No rush at all. Okay. Any comment? Sharing?
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, I just have a little doubt. The mind keeps talking to us. The mind, so if the mind has come from the mode of goodness, so from where does the mind get the power? Maybe it's our past impressions. I think maybe it's that, or how does the mind change our thoughts? How does it get the power? From where?
Power? You mean the thoughts?
Yes, Prabhuji. The mind, sometimes we want something else, but the mind tells us, no, that is nice, that is good, you have to do that. And then we identify ourselves with the mind and then we say, okay, we'll do that. So, so where does the mind get that?
Yeah, so mind carries Svabhava. This part of the creation is the Svabhava. Svabhava is our conditioning from our previous lifetimes. It's stored in the subtle mind. And when the living entity manifests again, that's the bhava of the living entity. So if you were a magician, if you have given, a charity of cows in your previous lifetimes, all that sabhava is stored in the mind. So for many lifetimes. So when it manifests in this lifetime, all those things come up. Mind knows in a subtle way that what I have done, sometimes we call it sanskharas, but the technical word is sabhava. So it's there. And then obviously it's getting affected by the 3 modes. So there is a great mix. When you build a house, you mix 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 different things. And then you have bricks, and then you add cement, and you add dirt, and you add, other. So it's not just the sabhava. Now mind is captured by the 3 modes. So yeah, that's complicated.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. We can end here at 7 o'clock. Thank you very much for connecting. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd
like to wish everybody a safe and Krishna conscious day and weekend ahead. And we'd like to offer our prayers to the Supreme Lord by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Nrsimha, Jai Nrsimha, Jai Nrsimha, Prahlades, Jaya Padma Mukha Padma Lingam. Ugraviram
Mahavishwam Jalantam Sarvatam
Nashingam
Visham Bhadram Vittam
Namami. Nrsimha Bhagwan ki jai, Raja ki
Jai.
That's today is also Ekadasi, minimally fasting from grains and beans and increasing our Krishna consciousness. There'll be Ekadasi Kirtan in the evening from 7 to 9 p.m. at the temple. The Parna time, breaking fast time for tomorrow is
7:08 to 10:15.
7:08 to 10:15 a.m. Okay. On that note, we'd like to offer our obeisances to all the assembled devotees. Mancha kalpatarubhayascha kripa sindhubhaya vachakatitanam pavanemev Vaishnavebhyo namaha granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Par Premanande Hari Hari.
Hari 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 Bol.
Thank you, Devkinandan.
Thank you everybody.
Thank
Hari
you.
Bol.
Thank you.
Shubha Ekadashi to everyone. Hari.
Thank you.